Welcome back, I'm Captain Xavier, and this is part 2 of my LEGO Castle tour. We're going to be going over some of the changes that I've made over the course of the last week, most of them as a result of me doing the tour last week and realizing all of the things that I'd never gotten around to fixing or finishing before I moved. And now I finally had the parts to do it, so I went ahead and did it. And then we will get down into the dungeons, which is going to be the fun part. I'm really looking forward to doing all the details down there. Right now it's still pretty bare, but we'll give a basic tour and then update as I go. For those of you who are paying really close attention or have a really good eye for detail, you will notice that the Gatehouse is actually significantly taller than it was last time. The Gatehouse and the side towers used to be the exact same height, and now it clearly isn't. And I personally think that that looks much, much better with a taller Gatehouse for various reasons, some of them going back all the way to the early LEGO castles, particularly the Knight's Castle, I think it was called. It had a tall gatehouse and then two smaller towers in the back, and I really always wanted that set and never actually had it until many, many years later, and I think I've built it now. But the other thing, you also notice that there is now a small tower up here that wasn't there before, similar to the one up here, and it is in fact the same thing. I have added a spiral staircase going up to the roof. So, we're going to pull out everything that hasn't been modified, and then we'll go into the ones that have. So let's get these out of the way. So, taking a look at the gatehouse, in addition to being raised, essentially an entire floor was added that was not there before. Previously, what would have been the third floor just was really tall and went all the way up to the roof. Now there is, in fact, a fourth floor that has been added, and that is the level at which the drawbridge winch is at, which is why it needed to be added. So I might be able to just turn it around so we can actually see the inside. Yes, so previously the entrance, there was a staircase that led right up to the middle, just like on the other towers, but I instead replaced it with a spiral staircase that comes up through here. It's the same staircase design as in the main castle. And a number of people pointed out correctly that in European castles, the staircases spiral counterclockwise, allowing a right-handed defender on the top of the stairs to be able to swing down the staircase, whereas a right-handed defender attacker coming up the stairs can't because their arm will hit the pillar. They would have to expose themselves more. Which is why left-handed people were often actually sent in the first wave of an attack, because a left-handed attacker can swing up the staircases. Being left-handed, I built my castle left-handed, so it's designed to be defended by left-handed people, and that's just because that's the way my brain works. So, spiral staircase in the corner of this floor. This is the floor that did not even exist before. Spiral staircase going up, regular staircase leading up to it for various architectural reasons. But this now allows a LEGO figure to actually be standing here and raise the drawbridge. And it has 2 inches. I assume that the drawbridge is heavy enough, it requires 2 people. And I like that the drawbridge and the portcullis controls are not in the same room. So you would need to take 2 different levels of the castle. You'd have to take all the way to the roof to be able to open up the gate, which I believe is tactically a good plan. And there will eventually be more details in here, cots or tables or weapon racks or something. And then this floor also, like I said, this was all one floor previously, still has more or less the same staircase that was in there before, kind of a little balcony, a little place where you can sit and look out over the courtyard of the castle. Other than that, nothing particularly interesting. This is on the same level as the top of the wall, so there will probably be something in here, possibly like a dining room for the guards or something. Maybe a large table in the middle. That was something that I recall seeing in the castles in France. That there was usually some place for leisure for the guards. Next level down, this previously had 2 little sections that came off, and then the central section didn't. But that has been changed so that it now all comes off as one piece, just because it made it more structurally sound and allows you to actually be able to get in and see inside the doorway. I did also add the door brace, so it keeps the door from opening. And I actually recessed the door into the wall. Previously it was flush with the wall, which had some various problems with part of the dungeon. But now you can actually see in there, and oh dear, the door has fallen off. This will happen. So, that's the changes that have been made to the gatehouse. The front section doesn't come off in layers because of all of the rope for the portcullis and all of that. It doesn't lend itself to coming off in layers nearly as nicely as anything else would, but it works. The next part that was updated, and I think I actually did it first, was the keep. Top 2 floors of the keep, or rather the bottom 2 floors of the keep. I mentioned that the bottom 2 floors of the keep, the level where you actually come in from the outside, this floor didn't come off in a layer. The floor actually lifted out of it, and that was a horrible design, and I have no idea what possessed me to do it that way. I believe at the time it was because I didn't have enough of the dark gray to be able to have the rock separate properly, and once again, now I do, and so now this is a removable floor. And this floor is, in fact, slightly taller as well. I think it's 2 bricks higher to accommodate for, one, more bunks, as well as for taller weapon racks for the tall halberds, because this is eventually going to be full of weapons and armor and all of that stuff. It's the guard apartments, as it were. And then this floor has remained mostly unchanged. I still don't have the doors for the treasure room, but this will be the treasure room. Once I get that built, there will be boxes and racks and all of that, and then the door leading down into the dungeon. This floor now comes off a little bit better than it did before. It was previously kind of permanently attached, but now that wall section comes off. Bell towers just lift off. And there were some not huge changes, but now when you lift up the chapel, somebody pointed out that I called it a temple, and that was actually slightly inaccurate. They said it should be a chapel, though their reasoning was wrong. They said it should be a chapel because medieval religion was all Christian, but this is obviously not set in medieval Europe. Christianity doesn't even exist in this fantasy world. But the word chapel refers to any building of worship that is integrated into a larger structure, which this is. So chapel is still technically an accurate term. These are not, of course, Benedictine monks. They're warrior monks to some pagan D&D god or whatever. You could do it. You could do it in a medieval setting if you felt, but there's a wizard's tower and elves and stuff. There's orcs attacking the village over here. So to say that it needs to be historically accurate to medieval Europe is a bit silly. But chapel is in fact the correct word. So we can remove the chapel, and now the flying buttresses are in fact attached to it. And much more solid, which I'm very happy about that. And finally, let's go ahead and get the people out of here. The big thing that I worked on, or rather the thing that I worked on that made me the happiest, was the Wizard's Tower. And I haven't changed a whole lot structurally. It is also now 2 bricks higher than it used to be, for interesting reasons. And we're definitely going to need to get closer for this, because this is some neat stuff. Though in the previous video, there was nothing in the Wizard's Tower except the little planetarium, and it was very crude. But now, it is full. I've added all of the workbenches. I've added, well here, let's just take it up and you can take a look inside. This stone archway is the portal by which they can get in and out. It's one of those wizard doors where it'll go wherever they want it to open up as long as there's a portal on the other side for them to go to. There is a workbench for doing incantations or whatnot. I haven't entirely decided what's going to go there, but there's a couple of candles. A bookshelf full of books. A scroll scribing area with a little ink bottle and a little scroll. Scroll racks. And he's in the way, but this is an alchemy workshop with bottles. Let's get that wizard out of the way. There you can kind of see it a little bit better. Vials and potions and a little still of some sorts. Couple of birds on a perch and a skull in the corner and little details. But what I'm really happy with how it came out is the new planetarium design, which when the wheel in the basement rotates, the whole planetarium rotates. And that's why I had to make the tower a little bit higher, because I made those long orbits, and they would have been hitting the wizards in the head, so I had to raise the whole building up so that I could raise those up, and I used the little different colored gems to be the different planets, and I'm really, really pleased with how it came out. And as I said, it is powered by a water wheel in the basement, so you rotate the water wheel and the planetarium rotates, which we will get to the water wheel next. Still not sure how they get to the roof. Probably more teleporting. Magic. Wizards. It's their thing. Alright, so in the back of the wizard's tower, when you first come in, there's that foyer with the black and white tile, and there's a staircase leading up that goes up to the storeroom. If you go around the back of the staircase, it takes you to this staircase, which takes you down into the basement of the wizard's tower, which, as you can see, has a water wheel, because there is in fact a river that runs under the base of the whole castle. Comes out under the drawbridge and comes out over here. The source of the water is actually the center of the castle. There's magic involved. As well there should be. Now, from here, there is a secret door. And there's an awful lot of those. And this one opens up and leads into this hallway, corridor. Nothing particularly interesting in it until you get to the far end, and there is another secret door. This one slides to the side instead of swinging open. And this leads into the crypts underneath the temple, or the chapel, as it were. There's wall full of crypts, and then there's two large sarcophagi in the middle. There's another secret passageway out the back there, which is eventually going to be covered by a statue that swings out, but I haven't built that yet. And it comes out of this, which some of you may recognize from one of the Harry Potter sets, the Chamber of Secrets set. It opens up, and that's how you can get into the crypts from the outside. There are entirely too many ways in and out of this crypt. But it's just such a great plot device that it just had to happen. Also, you may notice that there is a passageway here from the back of the this top, I can't remember what on earth those alcoves in the wall are called. I'm sure there's a fancy term for alcoves in the wall of a crypt, but there's a door out the back of that leads into another tunnel, which leads to another secret door, but we'll get to that one in a minute. And then on the far side of the crypt, there is yet another secret door that leads into the dungeons of the keep. There is also a passageway into the crypt from underneath the altar in the chapel. So there are 5 secret passageways in and out of the crypt, which is just a bad idea in a world where undead is a thing. This section lifts up so that you can see the passageway that leads from the crypt to there. There's also a passageway leading out of there. So that is that path. The next one we're going to show is from the back of the blacksmith shop, behind his hammer rack. There is a secret door that leads down this staircase and comes out. There's a secret door, slides into this lava room, which actually has a button over here that lights it all up. So it's all clear red and it lights up and it's really cool, and there's a tiny lava monster in there. Nyam. Nyam. And that is also what heats his forge. His forge is not actually a coal forge. It is simply heated directly by the fires from beneath, which I think is just kind of neat. If you can manage to get across the lava and past the lava monster on those little stones, there is a secret passageway on the far side, which leads to somewhere else. Now, from the stables, there is a door. It's not actually a secret door that leads into this storeroom underneath the gatehouse, and it is in fact just going to be a storeroom for supplies for generally for the stables. There's shelves down there, and there'll be buckets and barrels and boxes and stuff down there. And of course, the shelves are a secret door. Because, of course, they are. And that leads into this large chamber, which is eventually going to be 2 chambers. There is going to be a wall right here where this line is, and there'll be a very thin wall that hasn't quite been mined through, but has almost been mined through. And this side is just going to be chock full of gold. Just the wall is just lined in gold. But they haven't found it yet. There is then this mining cart that's on a little track. And this dungeon is probably going to be infested with wily dwarves who have mined their way underneath the castle and are undermining it and stealing all of the gold because that's funny. The passageway from the crypt, from the top section of the crypt, leads to a secret door right here, which leads into that room as well. There's also a secret passageway here, another one that slides, that leads into one of the rooms, one of the cells in the dungeon. Let's see, which one haven't we gone to yet? So the passageway in the lava room leads into this passage, which is the underground river. And the water source is actually here. This is where the water comes out. It flows out under the wizard's tower, flows out under the drawbridge, fills the moat, and the river there is actually flowing away from the castle because the source of the water is under the castle, which is all neat and magical and has fun storylines. And that pools in this pool underneath the gatehouse, and there is a little lever, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very well because it's dark, but there is a grate that gets closed. Oh, there you go. And opened right there. The one that is under the wizard's tower over there on the far side, as well as here on the far side, does not open up. So the only way into that water area from the outside is underneath the drawbridge. And that can only be accessed from inside, so that is fun. Well, let's see, that takes us to all of those. The last place is the main dungeons, or the last major place. There's also one of the towers goes all the way down to a grated floor, and there's water going underneath there, and it's nothing particularly interesting. But the dungeon is the interesting one, so let's go take a look at the dungeon. So this is the dungeon that's underneath the keep. First floor, there is just a storehouse for, the food and all of that for the main kitchens and whatnot upstairs. And that can come off. And then you see the actual cells. There are 4 individual cells. And on the far side, being of course a medieval dungeon, there are torture devices. There's a rack. There's a weapon or a tool rack full of whips and pinchers and other nasty things. There's a St. Andrew's cross for stringing people up. And of course, a brazier full of hot coals for the torturing. There is a secret passageway at the back that leads into the crypts, of course. And then there's a secret passageway in the back of this cell right here that leads into the big main cave. And that is pretty much it for the main dungeon. You can see it's all honeycombed, it's all full of secret passageways. Most of them, in fact, I think they're all interconnected. You can get to any area starting in any other area. You can, because I forgot one passageway, and that is in the storehouse under the gatehouse. There is, in fact, a swinging up passageway that leads into the water room. So if you can start here, go into the lava room, go into the water room, go into the storeroom, go into the main dungeon, go into the crypt, go all the way up into the wizard's tower or into the dungeons. And there is, of course, one final secret passageway in the dungeons over here that leads to the outside into the torture area of the dungeon. So lots and lots of interconnected secret passageways, and it was so much fun to design all of this. I started designing it years ago in, I think, Microsoft Paint, doodling at work, kind of designing what I wanted all the rooms to be like and how I thought they would all interconnect, and it ended up working out very much as I would hope. So, yeah. lots and lots of fun. A couple of other areas that didn't get gone over before. There is a dock here by the river, which has a boat, which is actually a very old Lego set, one of my early Lego sets that I remember getting and absolutely loving. You can see all the guys unloading it, buckets and crates and things full of fruit and whatnot. And then a staircase that leads up to the side gatehouse, which is why it doesn't have a drawbridge, because that's a really hard thing to try to fight up when guys are shooting down at you. They could also just light the docks on fire from underneath if you wanted. What else do I want to go over in this video? That's probably enough. There's a couple of people noticed some of the buildings out here. We will get into them, and then I could do probably a couple of videos just on the village, because it's fairly complicated at this point. But we will leave it there with the dungeons. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, leave them in the comments below. And as always,